Hello, everybody. My name is Kyle. This is Kyle's Trail Miles, where I talk about all things running and ultra running. And today I'm diving into the world of watches. I'm going to walk you through my watch journey from Apple to Garmin back to Apple, what I liked about each, why I'm back with Apple, and just sort of some real world experiences from them. I'm not going to talk about specs and all that stuff because there's way better videos on that with people that know way more about it than I do. I'm just going to give you my sort of real world feedback on what I like about each. So I wanted to kind of do the full lineup here. So if we jump way back to my Ironman days, triathlon days, back in, well, I won't tell you how old I am, but I used the Ironman Timex. I think a lot of people used this one back in the day. And it basically had a stopwatch on it. That was what we used back then. I love this watch. I still keep it. And fun fact, I still don't know how to set the time on this. It was so complicated. I had to get a guy at work who knew how to do it, switch it for me every time. But yeah, love that watch. Then about, I don't know, I was actually kind of late to the party on smartwatches, probably 6-ish years ago, 5 years ago. I don't know. I got my first smartwatch, which was a 7 Series Apple. I think it was brand new at the time. And I absolutely loved it. I thought I was only going to wear this when I exercise because I'm not a big watch or jewelry person. And I ended up falling in love with it. I used it every single day. It felt great on my wrist. I loved everything about this Apple Watch. I did have to switch out of it for a very specific reason. And I went with the Garmin Fenix 7, which really liked this watch, but there were some, what I felt to be drawbacks about it. And then recently I went with the Ultra Series 3 back to Apple, and I'll talk about why I made that switch and how I'm finding it so far. So here we go. iWatch 7, again, my first experience with iWatch. Now, one thing I will say about Apple, and I think everybody kind of knows this is like a standard thing on the internet, is if you get an Apple Watch, you have to download the Work Outdoors app. It's just a way better, in my opinion, it's the best app. It has great maps. It has great, you can go in and customize all the screens. It's just so great. So when I talk about the Apple Watch, I'm also kind of referring to that app as well. So anyways, iWatch 7 rather, really like this. I love the screen brightness. I loved how fast it was in calculating different, like current pace and all that stuff. Really just, I can't say enough good things about this watch. The only two things that I disliked about this watch, which ultimately led me to jump into the Fenix series, was the battery life. When I would go on, say a 100-kilometer race, for example, or even like a 50-mile race, the battery would only last about 12 hours. And that was kind of bare bones. That was turning the screen off and just having it when I sort of flicked my wrist up, or I think maybe I had to touch it or something. And yeah, kind of turning down as many settings as I could while still having full features. And that was carrying my phone with me, so that I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but it used the GPS from my phone to extend its battery life. So I had kind of all the settings I could. And yeah, it just wasn't sort of getting long enough. And as I got into longer and longer races, I realized, okay, you know what, this is great, but I got to, I need something with longer battery life. I can't be coming into aid stations trying to charge it and all that stuff all the time. But if it hadn't been for that, I'd probably still be wearing this watch. I absolutely loved it. And one other thing about this watch now, I don't know if I just didn't know it at the time. That's very possible. I feel like I looked this up at the time, but maybe not. I found that I couldn't, in the Work Outdoors app, I couldn't lock the screen. And so it's very kind of touch sensitive. And there was one time in particular, I was in a 50-kilometer race, I remember, 50-mile race. And I was at mile 40, and it was at night. And so I had my shirts over top of it, and it, tippy tapped it somehow, and it stopped my workout. And that was very irritating. And then, and I had that a bunch of times in training too, where my shirt would just tap the screen the wrong way or something, and it would stop the workout. And that is so dang frustrating. And so I'm like, okay, so I did a bit of research on the Fenix, and I was going to buy the Coros Vertex 2 because it has 2 weeks battery life or something. But then this one, the Fenix 7, was on sale, and I thought, well, rather than going and spending like $1,200 on a watch that I'm not sort of super familiar with, this will be a good introduction into Garmin, and then I'll see if I like it. So I bought it. It was like, I think it was like $300 at the time. And here's what I found about Garmin is, now this is the Phoenix, not the Phoenix Pro. So the screen is like a little bit smaller on it. And I found it just, the data fields just weren't big enough to fit everything I wanted on it. It did, but there was one key thing that was missing that was on the Apple, and that was the time, like just the time of day. And on the Apple, it's always just in the top right-hand corner. It's like almost like independent of the app almost. Whereas with Phoenix, you had to choose that as a data field, and I couldn't get enough data fields on this screen to allow for that and have everything else I wanted. So I kind of had to forego one thing. And where that I just found interesting is, you know how it is when you're out on a long mountain run, like you can just totally lose all essence of time. And so, yeah, I can see, okay, I've been out here for 8 hours, but at that point you're not doing mental math very well. And it's just nice to have the time. Plus in backyard ultras, it's super nice to have the time there, because like, do I trust the little stopwatchy thing or the countdown timer, or like, it's just nice to have the time. Even out on a training run, you got to be home by a certain time or whatever to get the kids to bed or whatever. It's like, it's just having the time there, and then trying to switch out of that screen, and then am I going to stop my workout by accident? And that was one thing that just kind of bugged me. The second thing, and this is ultimately why, actually I'm going to leave this one to the last, because this is why I ultimately switched out of this. But I found it cumbersome to download apps on this one versus Apple. Apple is just so quick and easy into the app. This one I just found like, just, I don't know, it's just sort of, you got to go into the Garmin app, and then sometimes it doesn't sync very well, and I don't know, I just found that process very kind of cumbersome. The battery life was good on this, but it wasn't like astronomical. Like, it wasn't like the Vertex, you know, it wasn't days and days. Like, you still had to be aware of it in long races. And so never had an issue, but you know, just, it wasn't like some crazy thing. Okay. So the two things about this watch that I really disliked, and it ultimately made me switch, and this may have changed on the new Garmin's, I don't know, but I found there was a real delay. Oh, I will tell you one thing I loved about this watch though, like really loved. But there was a delay in like the pace, the lag. Like, I was used to on my Apple Watch, I could look down at any given time and my pace was dead on. And you like, you know, your pace. If you're kind of running up a slight incline, or like, you can tell when, okay, I should be going this pace or that pace. And with my Apple, it was always like dead on the money. As soon as I looked down, my current pace was my current pace, give or take like a second. Like, it was right, very close. With Garmin, I found there was about a 4 to 5 second lag on your current pace, and that's just irritating. Like, so yeah, like when you're used to just glancing down and seeing, whoa, yeah, all right, I'm flying, or whoa, I'm going slow, it's just irritating. So there were lots of times with the Garmin where I'd look down and I'd go, oh man, I'm running way too slow, and then think, oh no, okay, I just went up that incline, so it's capturing that, and then I just wait 5 or 10 seconds. Okay, yeah, there's my current pace. And it's just, I actually got, so I didn't use current pace on this anymore. I just used like rolling 1 kilometer pace, or that type of thing, because it kind of just bugged me. And so that was a drawback. But the number one reason why I switched out of Garmin was just the maps. Like, I found zooming, like if you've never used an Apple, you probably don't realize this, but in Apple, the maps are like real time, and you use this little wheel to just zoom in and out of the map. It's just seamless. Like, you're running along and you just, oh, I need to zoom out a bit to see where that next aid station is, or I'm coming up to a turn, or there's a bunch of trails, there's a forks in the road, I need to zoom right in and see exactly which one I need to take. It's just, as you're running, you just grab this little thing, you just go zoop, and it just real time just zooms right in, and you can see exactly where you are, where the things are. Oh, good. And then you can just zoom out or zoom in. Like, it's just so easy to do that while running on the fly. You don't have to stop. And whereas I found with the Garmin, it just, there's a bunch of things about it. Like, it never knew in real time where I was. Like, it would always like, and so then I had to like stop. I always had to stop and like, okay, I'm pointing the watch this way. Okay, where am I? Whereas with the Apple, it just always knows which direction you're going somehow. I don't know how, but this one never did. It was always jumping all over the place. And then to zoom in and out, if you could get the zoom to working, so you had to turn on touchscreen to actually do the zoom on the screen, which I found worked horribly. So if you use the buttons, you'd have to come out of that screen, go just to the map screen. Then you had to go like zoom in, but then the zoom in was like, it would go, the screen would go blank, and then it would, and then it would open up, and then it would go blank. And so you couldn't really get like a sense of like, okay, how much did I just zoom in? Whereas with the Apple, there's this little circle on the screen, and then it says like 500 meters, and that's the, I don't know what's like the inside part of the circle. It's not the full circle like the radius. It's like the, not the diameter. It's like the radius. I don't know, grade 12 math, but whatever that is. So after a while, as you're zooming in and out, you don't even think about it. You just see that circle. Oh, 500 meters. The other thing about it that I loved is, let's say you're tracking an aid station or a turnaround or whatever. You can actually take the map, and you just zoom in or out until that circle, you're always in the center of the circle, and then you zoom in or out so that the circle is right on wherever you're trying to go or track. And then you just look at the circle, and it goes, 1 kilometer. So then you go, okay, so I know I'm exactly 1 kilometer from that. Or zoom in, oh, I'm 300 meters from that point, or I'm 5 kilometers from that point, like whatever. It just makes it so easy. Whereas with the Garmin, not only did it, when it zoomed in and out, you couldn't get a sense of like, how much did I just zoom in or out? But yeah, but it didn't have any sort of like, here's how far this is, or here's the, like, you know what I mean? Like any kind of legend or anything. And I honestly just found the maps totally useless. I was almost better off without maps. I used to joke that if I was lost in the wilderness and all I had was a Garmin, like just hit the SOS button, because I'm never getting out with this thing. Now, again, I probably just need to learn how to use them more or things like that. But it was just very cumbersome. I got lost so many times. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect with the Apple, because you kind of lose track of what you're doing or whatever. But yeah, it just, I had one situation in particular that really frustrated me where, yeah, it just didn't. And I remember thinking, if I had my Apple Watch right now, this would never have happened. And so, anyway, so those two things were enough for me, where I'm like, you know what, I love my maps. I love, and even just from a mental perspective, not so much even just from navigating, but just being able to zoom in and see how far you are away from things. There's something mentally rewarding about like zooming in and seeing, okay, I'm 3 kilometers from that aid station or from that turnaround or whatever. It's just mentally, you can just sort of work through that better. Yeah. So I don't know, maps, just like night and day different. Now, let me get into one thing I loved about the Garmin. I don't know if they do this to, like, I don't know why they do this, as if it's like a ego thing, or maybe I just didn't calibrate it. Maybe that's the thing. I don't do stuff like that. I just grab it out of the box, put it on, and I use it. But man, Garmin, and I kind of knew this going into Garmin a little bit, I will admit that, because my friends have Garmin, and so I could see the differences. But Garmin gives you way more elevation than Apple. For some reason, like, Apple is really stingy with elevation. I don't know why, but even on Strava, there were times where I would have done a segment with my Apple Watch, and it would give me like 180 meters of elevation. And then I bought my Garmin, I went out and I did the exact same one, and it would give me like 350 meters. Now, obviously, I mean, that's all BS. My body doesn't know the difference, but is Apple underreporting, or is Phoenix way over-reporting? I don't know, but I will say that if you love elevation and reporting elevation and feeling good about elevation, Phoenix is for you. I kind of missed that, actually. I'm not gonna lie. Just last night I went for a run, and it gave me, I think, 210 meters of elevation on my Apple Watch, and I know full well, had I been wearing my Phoenix, it would have given me at like maybe as high as 400, but at least 350. And I'm like, God. But anyways, something just sort of stupid. So then I decided, okay, I'm done with Garmin, because the maps just, I can't do it. And again, maybe this new AMOLED screen is better in zooming in or zooming out. I don't know. But it doesn't have the dial. So I went back to the 3. I decided, you know what? I use this watch all the time. I'm going to go with the 3 because it's got the best battery life. So I bought it, and as soon as I put it on, it was like coming home. I absolutely love it. The mapping is exactly the way I remember it. Zoom in, zoom out. It just works so slick. The color screen is so bright. Everything about it is perfect. I will get into some negatives. Everything about it is as I remember, and I love it. I love it for running. I love the pace is dead on the money. Heart rate. That's the other thing too. The heart rate monitor I found, I mean, everybody's probably a little bit different, but I found on my 7, my heart rate was way more, it was way more accurate, and B, it was way more real time. Again, with the Garmin, I found that there was about a 5 to 10 second lag even on my heart rate. And so that was frustrating too, where you look down and you're like, what? Anyways, I don't have to explain what that means while you're running, but that was frustrating too. Just like, again, it wasn't, the heart rate sensor just wasn't as good for me anyways. And I don't use a strap or anything like that. And so I was actually going to buy a heart rate strap for my Garmin. And then I'm like, you know what, rather than trying to go down all that path, let's just spend a little bit more money, get the Apple, get what I like, and go from there. So yeah, so the only downside to the Apple 3 that I've seen so far is just like battery. Like, I haven't run into the issue yet because I haven't done a long run in it yet, but the battery life I don't think is quite as good as the Garmin. Now, they do say that if I turn the screen off and I keep all the settings sort of realistically, like, no, not low, but lowish, that I can get up to, I think it was 23 hours, I believe, on the Apple. So I have yet to test that, but so far it's been great. I mean, I've gone for some fairly long runs and it's drained the battery like, 10-15% kind of thing. So I think I'm good. And there again, like, even the 7 was good for 360 days, maybe not 360, but 350 days of the year. It was just the other 15 that I needed more battery life. And so, yeah, so then the other key feature that I liked about this is they say, haven't tested this yet, but they say that you can go from like 0 battery life to, I'm going to screw this up, but I think it was like 50% in 15 minutes, something like that. So my thought process there is, even if I am in, a 100-mile race or whatever, I can have a power bank at an aid station or at a drop bag, come in. I'm definitely going to be at some aid station for 15 minutes, pop it in, and then even if I get to 50%, well, that's another 12 hours of battery. So I don't think this is going to be an issue for battery life. But yeah, and I found out the hard way that it does have a lock feature on the screen in that app. You can just go in and set it. So what I set it to was tapping the screen 4 times. So tap, 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 and then it unlocks and it locks. And it works out really, really slick. And I set up all the screens the way I like them. Yeah, the mapping already has been awesome. Really, really like it. So far, I'm really happy with this purchase. I love just the everyday wear of it, like the front screen on it. The other thing I really like about the Apple is you put the heart rate right on the front, or I do. You can set up the front screen however you want. And then, so it reminds me throughout the day to check my resting heart rate. So I'll be like, oh yeah, what's my resting heart rate today? And then I can kind of see where I'm at. Whereas with the Garmin, I think you could go in and maybe check your resting heart rate. In fact, I think you can, but it wasn't like right on the front screen or anything. And it just was a little bit more cumbersome to get to. And even the graph was a little bit harder to read. And yeah, so anyways, there you go. That's my take on sort of the Apple to Garmin to back to Apple take. Super happy that I came back with the Apple Watch. My only thing so far is like this band. I don't know. I'm not in love with it. I'm gonna, before kind of race season starts, I gotta find something new. I don't find this band like super comfortable. This is just the band that it came with. But so I'll have to get kind of a new one of those. I always like to stay away from like a Velcro band. I'm just afraid that I'm gonna like catch it on a tree branch or something, and the watch is gonna rip off, or I don't know. But maybe I'm just weird about that. So yeah, there you go. That's my jam. Super happy with the Apple Watch, and I'm glad I went back, but I do miss the elevation. So there you go. That's my take on all three watches. Talk to everybody soon.